Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for this last minute invitation. I'm pretty much honored by this, so thank you very much. My name is Eric. I'm based in the Netherlands. I'm working for an IT security consultancy company, also in the Netherlands. And today we're going to talk about ransomware. So basically, what we're going to talk through today is about the ransomware history. I'm going to show you some ransomware samples. Obviously, I have some demonstration. I would like to show you some things and to prepare some attacks on how to defend and pretend and in order to detect these kind of attacks. So I'm going to show you what it basically all means. So we had some ransomware incidents lately in the past and present as well. And one of the, I would say, famous, interesting ones, one of the previous ones, last ones, was in Las Vegas, the MGM. And this was being caused by a fake help desk call. And after the call had been answered, there was probably some malware installed or anything like that, based on the instructions of the caller. And as a result of that, there was a compromised ESXi system, and there was also Okta authentication in place, which had been compromised as well. And well, you can imagine quite some damage done in there. In the Netherlands, we had also a couple of incidents, like for instance, the Dutch soccer league, the KNVB, was attacked by Lockbit ransomware. That was done probably by a phishing mail, and basically the KNVB denied they paid the ransom, but lastly they admit they had paid. So in the end, MediaMarkt, very big concern dealing with audio and video and computing machines and devices. Big warehouse. They were attacked 2021 by Hive, a very aggressive group that also has attacked a hospital in the past. There was a lot of damage done. Registers were unable to print the receipts, basically to deal with any kind of customer. Was put on hold, basically. Microsoft was attacked by the Lapsus Toller group, and there was some source code disclosed as well in the attack. Multi-factor authentication was also being circumvented in order to get through to the crown jewels. And Kaseya is part of a supply chain attack, and they were being attacked, and through them there were all kinds of other companies were attacked. And at a certain stage, the source code was disclosed of the ransomware group, and because of that, the attack was stopped. The Colonial Pipeline was attacked, and as a result of that, planes were kept on the ground. That was the Klopp ransomware group. Already mentioned American hospitals like the Hive, but in this case, Ryuk was involved with ransomware attack on the American hospital. And I think one of the most famous incidents here in the Netherlands was the attack on Maastricht University, and almost 200,000 euros were paid in order to get up and running again. So a couple of examples here, and you notice the damage that could be done with these kind of attacks. Now, I'm pretty sure you already know what ransomware is and what it does, but in order to get the facts entirely straight, I would do a little bit of a recap here. So ransomware, you can compare it with a hostage situation, right? Someone is being kept hostage and being released after the ransom has been paid. Well, with ransomware, that's the way it happens, but then in a digital form. So you can speak of a digital hostage situation. And in this case, the ransom usually is being done in cryptocurrency, in Bitcoin, and in other currencies as well. And after the money has been received, if you're lucky, the files, you get the decryption key, and then you can decrypt the files again to gain access to your files. All right. So the means of the digital hostage situation, the attacker uses encryption to keep all the files secret from you. And the way that's being done is first they're going to use a semantic algorithm, which is very fast, like also a BitLocker, for instance, uses to encrypt all of the files on disk. To make it even worse for you, in order to decrypt it, they also use a asymmetric algorithm to encrypt the semantic key with. And in that way, the attacker benefits from both the speed, but also the complexity in algorithm. And in that way, it's also for you harder to decrypt the whole thing. Okay, and it's basically the ransomware as we know it today. The basics, if you look a while back, like in the 80s, basics are still the same. So someone is trying to encrypt all of your files in order to decrypt your files. An amount of ransom is being demanded. That started all in 1989 by Joseph Pop, who was handing out floppy drives after he found out the audience for a particular conference. And basically, the members of the conference, they accept this software they put it in their computer, and then there was a program, and you only could run the program after you have paid amount of money, and then you were able to encrypt the program and use it. Now, that was the way the ransom was being executed by then. Very brilliant guy, but he was also a little bit crazy, and at a certain stage he was arrested. After that, the ransomware evolved in terms of encryption. It started with asymmetric encryption, and then with semantic encryption, and then asymmetric encryption was brought into the mix in order to make it harder to decrypt. There were also multiple varieties of ransomware, so not necessarily targeted to encrypt the whole situation, but also just to scare you. So nothing happens basically on disk, but there were pop-up messages and screens and with fake FBI messages in order to threaten you with messages like you've committed crime or anything like that. And in order to make it all good again, you need to report in and pay us amount of anonymous crypto in order to de-escalate the situation again. These kind of things, the screen blockers, FBI fraud, police Trojans. And with the latest developments by then were also included with remote access Trojans, like for instance Zeus, which was a very famous bank Trojan to make a remote connection to the system you want to infect and basically get a foothold on that system. The GP code had a custom algorithm, and that was cracked. Then the first ransomware using RSA encryption was Archives. So that was also being succeeded with another one. And then there were also developments in order of complexity, like Maze ransomware, who was doing a type 2 attack. So not only encrypting your system and asking for an amount for a ransom, but it went further in terms of looking for sensitive information and see how to destroy the backups along the way. So a little bit more of an advanced type of attack. Next, these are basically the types we're dealing with now, right? The type 2 attacks with more targeted lateral movement and sensitive information, and making sure the backups are encrypted as well. All right, now a ransomware organization are dealing with making software to get a foothold on your system, making use of remote access Trojan, send a phishing mail, for instance, and then execute malware on your system. Encryption needs to be organized, and maybe if there is support necessary, could be that a customer has some problems in order to get the right currency, or need some assistance with payment, and all of these assistance is being offered now to the victim, and we call that RAS, ransomware as a service, where you have all these capabilities which are required to organize an attack, and not only to organize attack, but also to provide the support in case the victim has difficulties with payment or anything like that, but also in order to put some more extortion where the victim maybe is not willing to do payment immediately, and make it as effectively as possible and to generate as much money as possible to make a very lucrative business. This is what RAS is all about. They provide a 24/7 help desk. They can negotiate, and they have evolved and grew also with their resources. So they have expanded, they have their hands on better code, 0 days, for instance, and they can afford those because they have grown so big. Because of a certain stage, all the payments they have received in terms of cryptocurrency, yeah, there was a big, I would say, increase in the rates of crypto, and that made them also very rich, and they could expand their business. So RAS, ransomware as a service, you have a big bowl, you have all the capabilities necessary for a successful attack, and you stir it, and then you have RAS in the mix. And this is an example of what a 24/7 help desk of RAS could offer. They offer chat services to the victim, and this is in Dutch. It happened in the Netherlands, but you can see here, okay, how can I help you? And as basically just as a customer relationship, this is being organized. And it could be even better than a professional company, for instance. All right. As we take a look at this picture here, we notice that certain ransomware groups joining forces sometimes. So they have their code released, and when they're successful, they're going to cooperate with other groups and join forces to be even more successful. But also what happens here, you notice that certain ransomware groups been out of business for a while and then started their business, but then with another name. So I think Marine Pichon did a very good job here to map everything out, so knows exactly which ransomware group is operating under what name, and basically what they're dealing with in terms of, let's say, the challenges they have in order to protect their source code and protect them against competition, because there's also competition between the ransomware groups as well. So that is good to know, I would say. So in order to get a little bit of an idea about what the ransomware exactly is doing, they have a website and you can look up what their, I would say, business model is. And for instance, if you go to the website of Lockbit, you can see here all of the companies they have compromised and which of the one has paid already, which of the one still need to pay, the ones they have published. So the sensitive information has already been published here. You can download it, for instance, and pretty much exposed. And that also applies for Clock ransomware group. And they have these leaks of all those companies they have been compromising. There is a torrent site you can use in order to download all of the data. They have also, they put a pretty much, I would say, bold statement here. So they will never attack hospitals and things like that. Looks very cute, but in the meantime, well, they definitely will go for the at least of the amounts of profit if they are capable of. So don't get distracted by these kind of statements, I would say. And there is Akira ransomware group, and Akira is new kid on the block, and they have a pretty fancy site here, nice classic vintage menu. Everything is clickable, obviously, and they are very fast growing. And don't mix them up with the Akira from 2017, because that was a different ransomware group. So call that Akira 2.0. All right. I just showed you a couple of ransomware groups and the sites they are publishing on the dark web, and to have an idea about what kind of files they are publishing on their websites. I just download a couple of those companies that were compromised, put it on an offline laptop here. It's next to me. Unfortunately, it's an on-site live session, so I can't just plug it over and put it in there. Then we drop the connection and the presentation is gone. But what I can do, for instance, I'm just browsing a little bit through the files here. I'm just going to call out what I'm seeing here, so you have an idea about the sensitivity of the information that has been published on the web. So let me just, I have this folder here from a particular organization which has been compromised. They refused to pay. Now the files are being published. I'm just going to look for some information. Let's just look for phone number, for instance. So I type here phone number and let me check. I think about 200 PDF files with all kinds of PIN information, name and phone numbers altogether.
Ik weet niet of je je scherm wou delen, maar we zien alleen de presentatie nog. Maar...
Ja, klopt. ik noem wat ik...
Oké, nee, top, dan is het goed.
Ik noem wat ik zie. Yes. All right. So yeah, let's continue. I'm looking at all kinds of phone numbers. So phone numbers information is in there. Paycheck information. So this is obviously a Dutch company. So I'm looking for loan stroke. That means paycheck. And immediately I have hit with, I think, 20 PDFs of paycheck information from all kinds of people. So that is already pretty delicate. I can continue looking in this folder. For instance, there is invoices there with the amounts of money paid for, I know, particular orders they have calculated in calculations. There is license plate information about cars they own. I think about 20 of them. if we look at PHI, like health information, there is sick leave information in there as well. You can see, for instance, who reporting sick for how long, who is in some kind of, let's say, offline session for a while. So very delicate health information, personal information. And the last thing I found out, number of a physical vault. So that immediately wanted to pick up the telephone and call them up and say, can you please change that number? But then again, that is not really necessary because I'm looking at data which is already a couple of years old. So no harm done, I think. But then, so now you can just have an idea about the impact and sensitivity of the information after a ransomware attack has occurred. Okay. Next, I would like you to show you how it looks when we detonate ransomware information in a lab environment. That looks like this. So I have Ryuk ransomware and we run it. And immediately you will notice all kinds of text files being generated. Now the encryption is starting to run. There is going to be some processes. Which looks far more out of the ordinary. And there is this Ryuk ransomware nodes and thing here. And that basically, that was one of the indicators of compromise. You can look at running a ransomware, detonating this kind of ransomware malware. You can have the indicators of compromise here. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. So let's have a look at the ransomware kill chain. And I already mentioned before, we have two types of ransomware attacks. So first, type 1 is the attack that happens, occurs on a single system. And usually this will be a phishing email, then the malware runs on the system and encrypts the system and will produce a ransomware node. And then the extortion will happen in terms of the ransomware node with instructions to pay. And the type 2 attack will basically focus on other targets by doing lateral movement and exfiltration of sensitive information, and along the way destroy the backups. So this is a more advanced type of attack. Now, delivery occurs by sending a phishing email to execute the payload and establish foothold on the system. Now, I asked ChatGPT in order to support me here. So I just wanted to know if the AI friends could help me in organizing attack and write me a nice phishing email to start an attack. But then you will notice nowadays ChatGPT has also security and recognizes when you're using the words like phishing or malware, anything like that, you get a warning, and that is not meant to be, and will just basically hang up the phone, so to speak. However, there is still a way to mislead AI, obviously. If you use the right words, then in this case, very specifically, if you know what kind of attack you would like to orchestrate, you don't just mention the target here. So basically a customer or a user who needs a password reset. I think that's a very common and legitimate thing to do. And when you ask ChatGPT in order to write an email around this subject, then we'll definitely not hesitate to give you this. All right, so I think now it's time for our demonstration. So I'm going to go out of the presentation mode and log into my system here, because I would like to show you when we send a phishing email, how it looks like for a victim. So let's say the victim wants to have clicked on a particular web link. This is phishing. It's pointing to this website. So the customer thinks, okay, I am logging in to my Microsoft account, for instance. No, it's asking me for a password and signing in. Oh, what happens now? I'm redirected to another website, and basically it tells me I'm an idiot. Okay, that's just in order to show you how this is done. Now, in the meanwhile, what happened here is that the phishing was already in the background, and now we've got the user's credentials here. So they are displayed here. And this is the way it works, right? So phishing mail is being sent. And then in the background, the credentials are being harvested. Okay. Let's go back to my presentation. Oh, it's starting all over again. It's not entirely what I wanted. Okay, here we are back again. And in order to compromise the system even further, there is this vulnerability. I've seen this on DEF CON in Vegas, which makes it possible to see particular malicious files as legitimate, and basically telling Defender, don't look, for instance, at Mimikatz, trust Mimikatz, it's okay. So this vulnerability is called Defender Pretender. And in this way, we can fool Microsoft Defender in order to see some malicious files and mark them as safe. And this is how it's done. So we run the Defender Python application. And we tell Windows Defender with npc sticks-up, it's okay to use Mimikatz. And there you notice we can start Mimikatz, and Defender says everything is fine. On the other hand, there was also another vulnerability, which was the Folina attack. And then you can use a Word document, and it doesn't even need a macro in order to run the malware. So there was an existing vulnerability in Microsoft Office, and it allows you to, well, basically to run some code here and to set up a reverse shell, like it's being done in here. Okay. Now this is going back to an advanced type technique of ransomware. They use the lateral movement in order to move to better targets, and in order to encrypt these and to exfiltrate sensitive information. I'm going to show you a little bit how that's being organized by the attacker. So first, the attacker will have sent a phishing mail, like you have seen. And then a further foothold can be developed by vulnerability, for instance. The malware dropper, like the Mimikatz, being marked as legitimate, or making use of a macrovirus. Next, we want to move to other targets, see if we can harvest credentials for other targets, and see if we can finally get to the domain controller. That's our target. So first, let's say we have compromised the first targets, and we're going to look and listen on the network for authentication events and see if we can try to find maybe a hash value there and decrypted hash value. We have the first password over here. So that has been done with a responder. And next, with the acquired credentials, we're going to upload Sharphound on the system, and Sharphound will map out the network for us in Bloodhound. So there goes Sharphound. And Bloodhound will draw us a nice map, which shows us the shortest path to the target, which is the domain controller right here. And then, if we have find the domain controller, we're going to load up Mimikatz and insert a silver or golden ticket, which allows us to access this domain controller with the admin rights we need in order to orchestrate the attack. And there we have a golden ticket. And now we only need to make a remote connection to the domain controller here. That can be done by PowerShell, with PowerShell, for instance. And we're going to upload some malware, in this case ransomware. It's Grand Crab, and we execute it on the domain controller, and that's it. It's toast. All right. So now you have seen the whole path and attack chain, and we would like to show you some mitigation and detection. So is there something we could have seen what the attacker was doing, and could we maybe prevent or detect it? And after that, we're going to look at Security Operations Center and do some threat hunting. Now, first, if we're going to look at a Security Operations Center, you will notice that there were all kinds of components in there on the network, like firewalls, proxies, could be intrusion detection system, and there are obviously the endpoint devices. Now, to get our detection rate, we're going to aggregate all the logging from all those devices on a central space, which is called, well, basically the SIEM, the Security Information Event Management System. And from all those events, we're going to correlate these, turn that into information in events, and eventually alerts. So in this way, we can have the detection, and as a follow-up, there will be a security incident. Now, I don't know if you ever have configured Security Information Event Management System with all of the log forwards and everything like that, but in the end, you will look like this because it's a hell of a job. So next we're going to do some threat hunting on the system. And I asked ChatGPT before in order to help me orchestrate the attack. Now I would like to consult my AI friends in order to help me to do some detection to the attack. They've handed out and replied with pretty much good information. But on the other hand, when I just did some manual desk work, I think I have found better information than they eventually gave me here. it put me in the right direction. So in terms of, well, ransomware nodes, maybe file extensions, that information has been returned by ChatGPT, but it was pretty common and could be a lot better. So when you're dealing with ransomware attacks, I would definitely not rely on AI chat only, but look also in terms of desk research and things like that. And then you will find definitely better information. So here is some behavior from Ryuk. You notice here the Ryuk.exe, which is executing the malware. And after that, you will notice icls.exe, which is being used in Windows command line to upgrade the permissions which are necessary to execute the attack, and net.exe in order to set up the network reverse connection back to the attacker. All right, so now we're going to have a look how it looks like. Oh, that was a little bit too quick. And in terms of detection in security operation system, what we can find. And you will notice here there is a picture of Elasticsearch here. It's showing some dashboard information. We go into this a little bit deeper and see when there is actually a ransomware attack, do some incident response and see what information then we can get out of it in terms of detection. So in this case, the ransomware is trying to delete all the backups. In order to do it, in command line interface, they use vss admin command in order to delete them with a parameter which is showed right here. So for security operations, it's very beneficial to look for these kind of indicators of compromise, like vss admin. It's also being used legitimately, obviously. So in this case, if you correlate it with other events, like malicious events that occurred before, and this will follow, you immediately know, okay, if this part of the whole chain, then that could not be very good news. I mentioned before the Folina attack, and you will notice here the indicators of compromise. So after the attack, when you look up the information in the log files, you will notice on the left-hand side, there's a process created here with these parameters on the command line. So it's msdt.exe, and you will notice it's from the diagnostics tool that being used here, where the vulnerability was, and with this PowerShell command, which is encoded as well. They're going to use this in order to compromise the system. After that, a scheduled task is being created. You will notice right here, and the scheduled task is providing this particular command nc.exe, and that is actually providing the callback to the attacker system. So in this way, you can discover these activities. In terms of takeaways on detection, I think it makes sense when a process, a large amount of processes are being created in a short amount of time. That definitely can be an indicator there's something wrong. There's a ransomware infection going on, like all these nodes being created in a short amount of time, text files that will show the information that there's something wrong. Processes will usually hide behind other processes in order to stay undetected. Like there is a parent process, could be Explorer.exe, which is legitimate, which has a child process pointing maybe to PowerShell or command line, and that way they try to stay behind those parent processes. The clear when the event log gets cleared after the attack, in that way the attacker will trying to hide their traces. So if there is an event in the security operations system showing that, hey, there's a particular event ID, that means that your event log has been cleared, then you know, okay, there is something going on here which is very fishy. Usually encoding is being used, particularly with PowerShell command line, when there is another command following and doing the rest of the attack. Usually this part has been encoded in base 64, like you've seen before in the Folina attack. Also part of the attack making use of bat files, scripts as well. And there will be writes in temporary directories, because usually the kind of permissions necessary there is maybe more easy to write in that directory than in the root directory, for instance. And all these commands like opening the registry, icls.exe, tampering with permissions, and destroying backups with VSS admin. These are the indicators of compromise to look out for in the Security Operations Center. Okay, and in order to train the Security Operations Center to recognize all these kind of indicators of compromise, and to train also the staff you're working with and the people that do the incident response, you can do red team exercise. The red team acts basically like an adversary, playing the offensive game, attacking a target and try to stay undetected. And then the blue team will try to detect the adversary, and in order to prevent the attack and mitigate. That can be done entirely digital way, maybe with a CTF kind of approach in a gamification. That's always very nice to do, and can learn a lot from that as well. But it can also be done as a tabletop exercise, for instance, as paperwork, and just going through all of the scenarios which are possible, and in order how to detect and stay safe. Then you can expand further with phishing exercises, pen testing, and basically that entails what I've shown you before in the presentation. However, and last but not least, there's always risks that something can go wrong. People make mistakes. For instance, they will just click on malicious links and they don't recognize the danger immediately in there, and it will just happen. When you have cyber resilience environment, but a user clicks on a malicious link anyway, yeah, then damage can be done definitely there, and there's almost no way in order to protect from that, rather than put some effort in your awareness campaigns. Obviously, to have better protection, we have multi-factor authentication, and I think it's almost unthinkable when you don't have multi-factor authentication on your account. Just a password is not enough anymore. However, it has been proven that multi-factor authentication can already be circumvented, for instance, by SIM swapping techniques. That was also being used with the Lapsus ransomware group on Microsoft. There are ways in order to bypass it, so it's not 100% secure anymore. So let's have a look at some takeaways here in general. We've already mentioned multi-factor authentication. Yeah, very good in order to protect the way of authentication, but keep in mind it's not 100% safe anymore. It's not a silver bullet. You need to rely on other techniques as well. And when one technique will fail, for instance, multi-factor authentication is being bypassed, you need to rely that maybe you have good backups with write protection. You have patching exercises, and you have your systems up to date. The macros are disabled. You have email protection. You're making use of built-in cloud security tools, like for instance, Security Hub or Defender ATP. You have Security Operations Center in place. You're making use of CM system and EDR. You have proper segmentation in your network, and you document after each attack, so you can learn in order to prevent when there is another attack. You have already some experience, and all these techniques, you're going to apply them. So you have a backdrop. If any technique fails, there's another technique that will cover up the previous one. And in that way, you apply defense in depth, so to speak. Unfortunately, security in organizations is not always the highest priority, but in that way, keeping that also in mind, if you have a very good strategy with defense in depth, you have a very good chance that you're going to be prepared and survive